Put your hands behind your back for me.
Passenger, get out
Now.
of the vehicle. Now.
Anyone else inside? Speak up now.
Nobody else here.
We're here because you're trespassing on a restricted military installation. Who exactly are you trying to speak to tonight?
Step out of the vehicle.
Now.
The Nevada desert is a place of endless dust and heat, but for the military, it is a place of absolute rules. The first story in the police files begins on a lonely stretch of dirt road where the camo dudes, the private security guards for Area 51, have stopped a beat-up white van. They stand with their weapons ready, watching a man who looks far more tired than dangerous. When the local deputies arrive, the bodycam shows a man named Sean. He isn't a spy or a secret agent, he is just a man who says he needed a moment to himself. Sean explains that he has been living out of his van, a cramped space filled with everything he owns. He tells the officers that he couldn't find a spot to turn his vehicle around, so he drove further up the road than he should have. While he was there, he decided to take care of some personal business. "I started shaving," he says calmly to the deputy, "and I just got done doing a little wash with hand sanitizer." It is a strange sight, a man using hospital-grade cleaner to wash his face in the middle of a top-secret military zone. The deputies listen, but they aren't laughing. They point out that Sean passed several large signs warned him to stay away. To the military, no trespassing means exactly that, no matter how much you need to shave. While searching the van, the officers find something unexpected in the messy interior, a set of large, beautiful antlers. For a second, the tension breaks as they ask where he got them. Sean says they came from Colorado, but even these terrestrial treasures can't save him from the trouble he is in. The deputy gives Sean a choice: he can take a ticket or he can go to jail. Sean looks at the guards with their guns and chooses the ticket, realizing that his quick wash has turned into a very expensive mistake. As he prepares to leave, he admits it was the first time anyone had ever pointed a gun at him. He wanted a place to turn around, but instead, he found the hard edge of the law. This was just the first of many strange encounters at the gates of the secret base. The scene shifts from Sean's van to a hot day in May 2024. A couple is driving through the desert, looking for the famous gates of Area 51. They aren't trying to cause trouble, they are just tourists who say they were given bad directions at a nearby gas station. The lady at the station told them to follow a certain path, but they quickly realized they were in the wrong place when they saw the landscape didn't look right. Before they could turn around, a white security vehicle appeared, and they were told the Rangers were coming for them. When Deputy Ray and Deputy Maxwell arrive, the couple is visibly shaken. They explained that they were simply curious and got lost. However, the deputies point out that they crossed the military boundary half a mile back. The line is clearly marked with bright orange posts and no trespassing signs on both sides of the road. In this part of Nevada, a simple wrong turn carries a very heavy price. The camo dudes watching from the distance express concern that the couple might have drones in their car, but the deputies find nothing suspicious. Even so, the law is strict. Deputy Ray informs the couple that they will each be getting a citation for trespassing on a military installation. As he writes the tickets, the woman mentions that it is actually a special day. "It's his birthday," she says, pointing to the man. He has just turned 45 years old. The deputy doesn't take the tickets back, but he does offer a bit of dark humor. "Happy birthday," he says as he hands over the paperwork. "Here's your present." He calls the fine a $640 souvenir, a reminder of a birthday trip they will never forget for all the wrong reasons. They are sent on their way, leaving the restricted zone behind with a very expensive story to tell. This encounter shows that even an accidental mistake at Area 51 results in a serious confrontation with the law. The stories of tourists and accidental trespassers are common at Area 51, but in September 2025, the military guards encounter someone who doesn't fit the usual pattern. Instead of a car or a van, the security sensors pick up a person moving through the restricted desert on foot. Walking into a high-security military installation is extremely dangerous and unusual, and it immediately puts the guards on high alert. When the local deputies arrive to take over the scene, they find a young man named Seth. He is standing in the middle of the empty landscape, surrounded by guards who have their weapons pointed at him. Unlike the couple or the man in the van, Seth doesn't look scared or confused. He has blue-tinted hair and strange markings on his face, giving him an appearance that is as mysterious as the base itself. The guards report that Seth seems to be in a strange state of mind. He isn't acting aggressive, but he isn't acting normal either. He tells the officers that he traveled a long way to get here and that he purposely walked past the warning signs. To the deputies, this is a serious problem because it shows he intended to break the law. They decide right away that they cannot just give him a ticket and let him go. The air is thick with tension as the deputies prepare to move him. They tell Seth that he needs to get into the back of the patrol truck. Seth has one main question for them. He wants to know if he will be allowed to speak to the military personnel. He seems to believe that he has a message or a reason for being there that only the military can understand. However, the answer he gets is a firm no. This moment marks the beginning of a much deeper and more complicated confrontation than anything the deputies have dealt with before. The deputies lead Seth toward the patrol truck while the camo dudes keep their eyes on the surrounding desert. Seth is now in handcuffs, a sharp contrast to his calm and quiet behavior. As he is placed in the back of the vehicle, the metallic click of the door closing marks the official end of his freedom. The wide-angle lens of the Bodycam captures his face. He looks up with a strange expression, appearing more like a man who has reached a destination than one who has been caught. Officer Kota stands by the door and begins the formal process of the arrest. He explains to Seth that he is being taken into custody for trespassing on a military installation. Even in this tense moment, Seth remains polite, but his mind is clearly on something else. He isn't worried about the handcuffs or the patrol car. He is focused on the massive, hidden facility that lies just beyond the horizon. He repeats his request to speak with someone in charge, someone from the military who can understand his desperation. Kota's tone is firm and professional as he tells Seth that his request is not going to happen tonight. The officer makes it very clear, Seth is not a guest or a visitor, he is a prisoner being booked into jail. The dream of a grand meeting with military leaders starts to fade as the reality of the law takes over. Seth is told that his truck will be searched and that he is now facing serious federal charges. Despite the clear warnings, Seth doesn't seem to care about the consequences. He tells the officer that he actually counted on going to jail. This admission changes the energy of the arrest. It becomes clear to the deputies that this wasn't a mistake like the tourists before him. Seth wanted the attention of the law. He wanted the world to see him. As the patrol truck starts its engine, the journey into the psychological mystery of why Seth really came to Area 51 begins. Inside the quiet patrol truck, the mood becomes very serious. Officer Kota takes out a piece of paper that will change Seth's life forever. He explains that since Seth was caught on a military base, he is now officially banned from entering any other military installation in the United States. This isn't just a suggestion, the officer calls it non-negotiable. This means Seth has no choice in the matter, and the military will never allow him back on their land again. The officer asks Seth to sign the paper to show he understands the rules. Seth looks at the document with a confused and worried face. He doesn't want to sign it. He tells the officer that he wants to speak with people from the base because he is desperate about things happening in his life. He feels like signing the paper would be a mistake and says it doesn't fit with his better judgment. Officer Kota remains calm but very firm. He reminds Seth that whether he signs the paper or not, the ban is still real. He also tells Seth clearly that he is being booked into jail tonight and will not be talking to any military leaders. The dream Seth had of being helped by the government is hitting a wall of reality. The silence in the truck is heavy as Seth realizes he has no power in this situation. He mentions that he feels anxiety in the air and just wants answers. But instead of answers, the officer begins to read Seth his Miranda rights. This is a moment where Seth must decide if he will keep talking or stay quiet, but the chance to walk onto the base as a guest is gone forever. This chapter shows that the military does not make exceptions, even for someone who claims they are in trouble. Seth sits in the back of the patrol truck, looking through the metal cage at Officer Kota. He doesn't act like a normal person who has been arrested. Instead of being angry or staying quiet, he begins to plead for help. He tells the officer that he is desperate because of things going on in his life that most people would never understand. He believes that his situation is so strange that even his own family cannot help him anymore. Seth explains that he came to Area 51 for a very specific reason. He calls it the whole "take me to your leader" thing. He isn't looking for a typical lawyer or a friend, he wants to speak with the highest military leaders or the US government. In his mind, the government is a bigger family that has the power and the secrets to understand the weird things he is feeling. He feels that his case is so important that it is worth breaking the law just to get their attention. The young man describes himself as someone who was being guided to this place. He says he felt a sense of trust that if he showed up at the most secret base in the world, someone there would finally advise and support him. He isn't trying to be a criminal, he is trying to find a teacher or a protector. He believes that somewhere deep inside the base, there is a person who already knows his story and is waiting to help him. However, the police do not see a spiritual seeker. They see a trespasser who has crossed a dangerous line. Officer Kota tells Seth that he is not going to speak with any leaders or military members tonight. The officer reminds him that there are consequences for breaking the law, no matter how desperate he feels. Seth listens, but he doesn't seem to give up hope. He tells the officer that he was actually counting on being arrested because he thought it was the only way to start the conversation. This chapter shows a man who was willing to lose his freedom just to be heard by someone in power. As the conversation continues, Officer Kota realizes that Seth is not going to stop talking. Before they can go any further, the officer must follow the rules of the law. He pulls out a small card and begins to read Seth his Miranda rights. He tells Seth that he has the right to remain silent and that anything he says can be used against him in court. Seth listens quietly, but he doesn't seem to want to stay silent. He tells the officer that he just wants to be honest about how he is feeling. Seth explains that his reason for coming to the base is tied to a strange feeling he has. He tells the officer, "I feel anxiety in the air." He believes that this feeling isn't just in his head, he thinks it is a real energy coming from the people in the secret base around him. He even tells Officer Kota that he is worried he is feeling the officer's own anxiety as they speak. The officer tries to keep the focus on the facts. He reminds Seth that no matter what he feels in the air, he still broke the law by crossing onto military land. He explains that there are serious consequences for these actions. Seth's surprising response is that he completely understands. In fact, he repeats that he was actually counting on these consequences. This moment shows a big difference between a normal arrest and Seth's situation. Most people are afraid of the police and the law, but Seth sees them as a way to get what he wants. He is using the arrest as a bridge to reach the people he thinks can help him with his extrasensory feelings. As they sit in the dark truck, the mystery of Seth's mind becomes just as deep as the secrets of Area 51. Seth continues to talk to Officer Kota, trying to explain the secret world he lives in. He says that being around other people is very hard for him because he feels their emotions on an extreme level. He calls this non-local consciousness, which means he can feel what others are thinking or feeling even if they are not touching him. Seth believes that his ability to feel these energies is so powerful that it could actually be a national security threat. He tells the officer that he isn't just making things up, he truly believes he is being guided to the base. Seth says that his unique situation has caused a further divide with his own family because they cannot understand what he is going through. Because he felt so alone, he decided he had to go to the bigger family of the US government to find people who might finally have the answers. Seth explains that he didn't enter the base to be a criminal or to act out of spite. Instead, he did it to spite the laws because he felt there was no other way to reach the specific agencies that handle top-secret information. He has a deep trust that someone inside the military already knows about his case and is waiting to help him understand his extrasensory life. Officer Kota listens to this long confession, but he remains focused on the safety of the base. While Seth talks about energy and spirits, the officer is more worried about real-world dangers. This chapter shows a man who is so desperate for help that he sees a high-security military prison as the only place where he might finally be understood. As the patrol car pulls away from the border of the base, the reality of the situation begins to settle in. Most people who are arrested feel a sense of regret or fear, but Seth is different. He looks out the window at the passing desert and tells Officer Kota that he is not worried about his future. In fact, he says something that surprises the officers, "I was actually counting on it." Seth explains that he did not see going to jail as a punishment. Instead, he saw it as the only way to get the world to pay attention to him. He believes that by breaking the law at such a famous and secret place, he has forced the government to open a file on him. In his mind, being a prisoner is a small price to pay if it means he can finally talk to someone about the energy he feels inside. Officer Kota listens but stays focused on his job. He tells Seth to have a seat and stay calm as they begin the long journey. Even though Seth says he wanted this to happen, the officer reminds him that jail is a real place with real rules. He explains that Seth's truck will be left behind and that he won't be able to just walk away whenever he wants. The conversation shows how much Seth has separated himself from normal life. While the police see a man who has made a bad choice, Seth sees himself as a hero in his own story, a man who had to lose his freedom to find the truth. The dark interior of the patrol truck becomes a quiet place where Seth waits for the next part of his plan to unfold. This chapter highlights the strange calm of a person who believes that even a jail cell is a step toward reaching his bigger family in the government. Inside the quiet patrol truck, Seth begins to explain the deeper reason for his actions. He tells Officer Kota that he did not come to the base because of a simple thought or a plan he made alone. Instead, he says he is being guided by something much bigger than himself. Seth believes that his mind is connected to a special kind of energy that tells him where to go and what to do. He calls this consciousness and explains that it is like a voice or a feeling that he must follow. Seth tells the officer that he isn't trying to run away from his choices. He says he takes full accountability for following this guidance, even if it led him to break the law. In his mind, the military base is the only place on Earth where people might actually understand this connection to energy. He felt a deep sense of trust that if he reached the secret facility, the people there would be able to advise him and support him with the strange things happening in his life. The young man explains that there are cases where people can view other people non-locally, which means sensing them from far away through their minds. To Seth, this isn't just a story or a dream, it is his daily reality. He truly believes that by entering Area 51, he is trying to protect the country by sharing what he knows about this mental power. He sees his own life as a case that proves some people have no other way to reach the government except by walking right into a restricted zone. Officer Kota listens, but it is hard for a normal person to understand what Seth is saying. While Seth talks about being guided by spirit and energy, the officer only sees a man who has walked into a dangerous area without permission. Seth remains hopeful, however. He is sure that somebody somewhere inside the military knows exactly what is happening to him and is waiting for the right moment to help. This chapter shows a man who believes he is on a spiritual mission, even as he sits in the back of a police car. Sitting in the back of the patrol car, Seth starts to talk about something very serious. He tells Officer Kota that his situation is not just a personal problem. He believes that the things he can do with his mind are actually a national security threat. He says that because he can feel and see things that are secret, the government needs to know about him right away. He thinks his non-local consciousness is like a powerful tool that could be dangerous if the wrong people used it. Seth explains that he feels like a living case file that the military has been waiting for. He believes that his ability to sense energy is the reason Area 51 exists in the first place. He tells the officer that he isn't trying to be a spy or a bad guy. Instead, he wants to work with the government to make sure his powers are handled correctly. In his mind, he is a hero trying to protect the country by turning himself in at the most secret base on Earth. The young man with the blue hair says that he is tired of keeping these secrets alone. He tells Kota that the agony of knowing things that others don't is too much for him to carry. He believes that if the military leaders would just talk to him, they would see that he is telling the truth. He views himself as a special person who was chosen to bridge the gap between normal people and the hidden world of the base. Officer Kota continues to drive through the dark desert, listening to Seth's strange words. To the officer, Seth is just a man who broke the law and needs to go to jail. But for Seth, the trip to jail is the only way to prove that he is a threat that the world needs to understand. He sits quietly, waiting for the high-level officials he is sure will be waiting for him at the end of the road. This chapter shows a man who sees his own mind as a powerful weapon that only the military can control. While Seth is talking about his mind in the secret base, the deputies have to finish their work on the road. Officer Kota and the other deputies begin to search Seth's truck, which is parked near the military gate. They need to make sure there are no dangerous items left behind that could hurt anyone or damage the base. During the search, they find a large knife called a machete hidden inside the vehicle. Finding a weapon like a machete makes the situation even more serious for the officers. Even though Seth says he is a peaceful person who just wants to talk, having a big knife near a military base is a huge red flag. The deputies carefully take the machete and put it away as evidence. They also look through his other belongings to see if there are any cameras or tools that a spy might use. Seth watches from the back of the patrol car as the officers go through his things. He doesn't seem upset that they found the knife. To him, the machete was probably just a tool for traveling through the desert, but to the police, it is proof that Seth could have been a threat. This search shows that the law cares more about physical safety than the energy or consciousness that Seth keeps talking about. The deputies talk among themselves about what to do with the truck. It is a rough road, and they don't want to leave the vehicle sitting right at the edge of the secret base. They decide they will have to move it later, but for now, their main goal is getting Seth and his weapons away from Area 51. This chapter reminds us that no matter what Seth says about his mission, the police see him as a man with a weapon who broke a very important rule. As Seth sits in the patrol car, he begins to speak about his life back home. He tells Officer Coda that his situation has caused a lot of pain for his family. He says that his parents and relatives love him very much, but they are also in great distress because of him. Seth explains that he tried to keep his distance from them until he could understand what was happening with his own mind. Seth describes a sad situation where he tried to reconnect with his family and explain the energies he was feeling. He told them that he could feel everything they were feeling, but instead of helping, this only made things worse. He says it created a further divide between them. His family simply could not understand how he could sense things that were not there, and they didn't know how to help a son who claimed to have a non-local consciousness. Because of this, Seth began to feel completely alone. He realized that his experience was so unique that even the people who loved him most could not bridge the gap. This is why he decided to look for a bigger family. In Seth's mind, the United States government and the military are the only groups large enough and secret enough to be his new family. He believes that the military will not be scared of his powers like his parents were. He thinks that at Area 51, he will find people who finally speak his language and understand his extrasensory life. This chapter shows that Seth is not just looking for secrets, he is looking for a place where he finally belongs. He has traded his real family for the hope of finding a home among the soldiers and scientists of the secret base. Officer Coda makes a phone call to the security team inside the base to see if anyone will meet with Seth. Seth sits perfectly still, hoping that this is the moment his life changes. He is ready to tell his story to the generals and scientists who work behind the secret fences. But when the officer finishes the call, the news is not what Seth wanted to hear. The officer looks back at Seth and says very clearly, "The military does not wish to speak with you." He explains that the people inside the base have no interest in hearing about Seth's non-local consciousness or his extrasensory feelings. To them, he is not a special guest or a national security expert, he is simply a trespasser who needs to be removed from the property. Seth is shocked by this answer. He asks why they would refuse to speak to him after he played everything into getting there. He can't understand why the bigger family he trusted would turn him away so easily. The officer explains that the military is the one who called the police to come and get him and his truck. They don't want a conversation, they just want him gone. This is a very sad moment for Seth. He realizes that the secret base he traveled so far to reach is just as cold and silent as the rest of the world. The military doesn't want to help him or study him. They just want him to face the consequences of breaking the law. As the patrol car prepares to drive away, Seth's hope of being understood by the government starts to disappear. This chapter shows that even at Area 51, the rules of the world are still the same. Even after the deputy tells him the cold truth, Seth does not want to give up. As they prepare to leave the area, he sees some of the base security personnel standing nearby. He tries one last time to get them to listen. He speaks with a loud, urgent voice, trying to explain that he isn't just a random intruder. He tells them about extreme spirits and how his mind is connected to things they might be studying inside the base. Seth describes his extrasensory phenomenon as something that is physically harming him and his family. He tells the guards that he is desperate because he feels the weight of how society looks at people like him. He wants the security team to see that he is a human being in pain, not just a security problem to be solved. He hopes that by showing his raw emotions, someone will finally feel sorry for him and open the gate. However, the security officers do not move or respond to his cries. They stand like statues, watching the patrol car. To them, Seth's words are just noise. Officer Koda eventually has to stop the conversation. He tells Seth that he has a lot of paperwork to do and that it is time to get moving. The officer asks for patience as they begin the drive to the bucket, the local nickname for the jail. This moment is the final break in Seth's plan. He realizes that no matter how much he yells or explains his special powers, the wall of the military is too thick to break. He is forced to sit back in the seat as the patrol car turns away from the forbidden facility. The lights of Area 51 fade into the distance, leaving Seth alone with his thoughts and his handcuffs. This chapter shows that the loudest plea for help can still be met with total silence when it happens at the world's most secret base. The sun begins to set over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and orange. Officer Koda starts the engine of the patrol truck, and the long journey away from Area 51 begins. It is a very long drive from the military gate back to the Lincoln County Detention Center. Inside the car, it is mostly quiet. Seth sits in the back, watching the restricted mountains slowly disappear in the rearview mirror. The road away from the base is rough and bumpy. For a long time, there are no other cars or buildings, just miles of empty sand and sagebrush. Seth seems to have lost his energy for talking. He spent so much time trying to convince the camo dudes and the deputies that he was special, but now he is just another person in the back of a police car. The anxiety in the air he mentioned earlier has turned into a heavy silence. As the hours pass, the desert becomes completely dark. The only light comes from the truck's headlights cutting through the dust. Officer Koda stays focused on the road, while Seth rests his head against the cool glass of the window. He never mentioned exactly where he was from, but the deputies know that many people travel across the country, or even from places like Ukraine or the Czech Republic, just to see this part of Nevada. By the time they reach the town of Pioche, where the jail is located, the night has almost turned into morning. The long drive has given Seth plenty of time to think about his choices. He is no longer at the center of a mystery, he is reaching the end of his trip. When they finally arrive at the detention center, the deputies hand him over to the officers on duty. Seth is tired and quiet as he is led into the building to be booked. This chapter shows that the excitement of the mission ends with a very long, lonely drive to a jail cell. The heavy steel door of the Lincoln County Detention Center slides shut with a resounding thud, a sound that signals the official end of Seth's desert journey. The transition from the vast, open silence of the restricted zone to the bright, fluorescent hum of the booking area is jarring. Here, Seth is no longer a guided soul or a national security threat, he is simply a new intake number in the system. The booking process is methodical and indifferent. The officers follow a strict routine. Property inventory, everything Seth carried is catalogued, his belt, his shoelaces, and any personal items that survived the trek. Identification, his fingerprints are scanned, and his photo is taken. The blue-tinted hair and facial markings are recorded as distinguishing features in a government database, though not the one he had hoped for. The uniform, he is instructed to change into the standard jail attire. The clothes he wore when he crossed the military line are bagged and stored away. Throughout the process, Seth remains eerily compliant. He doesn't fight or argue, he simply watches the officers with the same intense, searching gaze he used at the gate. He seems to be waiting for a sign, a specific question or a secret code that would prove someone here knows who he really is. But the questions are all standard: name? Date of birth? Do you have any medical conditions? When the paperwork is finished, Seth is led to a holding cell. As he sits on the narrow bunk, the reality of his non-negotiable ban from military land finally settles in. He had come to Area 51 looking for a family and a leader, but he found only a cell and a court date. The mystery of Seth remains unsolved. Was he a man experiencing a profound mental health crisis, or did he truly believe he had tapped into something the rest of the world couldn't see? As the lights in the hallway dim for the night, Seth stares at the ceiling, still listening for the consciousness that led him to the most guarded fence in the world.